I am so excited about this show. I'm sorry, I really am, because like I'm autistic and well, I think a lot of us probably are. I know Davey is excited too. Davey, you're excited, right? You guys did an amazing little special segment for us this time.
Yes, I'm very excited for this episode. We do have a sketch ready to go. We both have sketches ready to go.
Yes, we do.
We have a fun quiz for Eric. I pulled from his background a little bit for a fun quiz this week, and this is not the first time I've heard you and Eric have a conversation. I may have edited a podcast I was telling Eric for a different show, so I can guarantee the peculiars they're in for a treat this week.
That's right. No, we're really excited, and I'm seeing tons of people. We've got so many people here, as well as we've got some newbies. This is Samantha Fox's first show. She's very excited. People are saying, "Welcome to Samantha." Some of you noted that Bart now has a purr in the video, which is exciting. Tori loves the opening too.
Thank you, Tori.
Got lots and lots of people here. I actually was trying to, it's always hard. You guys put in the, you guys are here early. We've got some people from Ogden, Utah. Jennifer Pierce is here from Minnesota. We've got Leanne, and I see Mike. I like how I'm looking in the audience. Mike, are you here? We've got Kathleen from Toronto.
I was on the other tab, and it was telling me we had 50 comments like I needed to go back and look at. So you peculiars are ready to go tonight.
You are ready. And we also have Judy. Judy hasn't been with us in a little while, so it's nice to see Judy back. I know we've got a couple of different people online, and everyone's here and excited and waving, as it turns out, just so we can welcome our guest tonight, which is Eric Garcia. Yay!
I love that. I love that. That is awesome. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Yes.
Hey, Eric. Welcome to the show.
Hey, David. How you doing?
So good to have you on.
Hey, all the peculiars.
Everybody's so excited. We've got lots of people on tonight. Everybody has lots to say. There's so much to talk about with your book. Jill Abrams is here as well for the first time. She's actually from the UK. She's across the pond, and she's up awake even though it's midnight.
Oh my goodness.
I know we have Silvery Blue Queen, which I know is Maggie. So she's going to be making her debut tonight. It's midnight in Scotland as well. The History Coin would like us to remember that's it's quite late there.
We appreciate the UK listeners. Everybody across the pond, we appreciate.
Yes, we do. And I'm so sorry that I missed you all last week or last time we had our show, but Davey did a brilliant and amazing job. I also want to quickly introduce our cocktail. So it's blue, and basically when Kat said she was going to call it the Neurofabulous cocktail, I was like, no more voting. Fantastic Neurofabulous cocktail. So that is the name of this particular cocktail. I hope, cheers to all of you. You guys can go ahead and pop into the comments things that you might be drinking, either your takes on the recipe, or it looks like you've got some really, really sketchy drink going on there, Eric. What is that?
It's just water. I'm not drinking. It's vodka.
Well, and Leanne's got her licorice tea going on right now as well. And the fun thing is, of course, straight tequila, says Rebecca. Oh, Neurofabulous. That's what Neurofabulous. So good. And Amanda Johnson's back on as well, having a hazy pale ale and pining for fall. Basically, we also do a mocktail, and Kat's great about creating these really, really fabulous mocktails. She's our drinks maven. We actually have a lot of mavens on the show now. These are our volunteers who help us out. Jennifer Pierce runs our Goodreads. Amberly does our Discord, and we're even talking about maybe having a Discord after party after some of the shows. So that's something we're kind of looking at for the future. So don't forget that we have all of these other platforms too that are available on our website. But we've got some thank yous to Davey for doing a great job.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah. We did have a fun episode. We missed you, but we had a fun episode.
Yeah, it sounded really good. I was kind of I was airport ridden, and things were not going super great with the whole connectivity thing. But yes, we do have a Discord. we do. It's, if you go up to our website, peculiarbookclub.com, you'll see there's if you scroll down, there's all the little social media buttons, and there's tons of them at the moment. So yes. Oh, Samantha's having an Odell's Mountain Standard IPA. Y'all with the IPAs. Ooh. Oh, I hear a doggy. Is that your pup?
That might be Kenobi hanging out. I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic until he calms down.
He's been on the show a couple times as well. So just to get us started, here's how this works. You guys can put the comment or your questions in the comments. So if you're new here, you just type them into the comment bar. And then as you can see, I can pull them over so we can all read them. That way people who listen to the podcast can get them as well. But while those are queuing up, please go ahead and start adding them. I always start off with a kind of simple question, which is, how did you begin to get the idea of writing a book? Because I know you and I are both autistic. We have a lot of things in common, but like, when did it become, I need to write a book about that?
So this is a good question. You have to go all the way back to 2015. I was at a party with a guy by the name of Tim Mack, who works at NPR at the time. And then he offered me a drink at a party. And I said, I can't drink because of medicine I take. Because I'm on the autism spectrum and the medicine I take doesn't mix with this. And instead of him saying, oh, come on, don't be a vampire, he said, how much can I cuss on here, by the way?
Oh, pretty much, because I do. Oops.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And so, like he said, there's a lot of autistic people in Washington. You should write something about that. And he kind of, continued to say I should. And then what happened is I was working at a national journal at the time. And at the time I was a political reporter. I was an economics and politics reporter. I was happy to do that for the rest of my life. There's another universe where I just stick to that. I'm happy, don't get me wrong. But then what happened was I was at a national journal and the print magazine decided to shut down. The owner decided to shut down the print magazine. And I pitched this idea to my editor, a guy by the name of Richard Just, who's an amazing human being. And he said, why should this piece exist? And I said, well, there's so much of a focus on trying to help autistic people, to like cure autistic people, not enough on helping them live more fulfilling lives. And and then he's like, there's your piece there, go. And then like there was just a lot of stuff in that article that didn't make the cutting room floor. He says, this would be great for a book. And I thought, maybe I'll write a book, and then like but that was just like a long way away. And then like a friend of mine introduced me to an agent, and then she was like, do you want to do a book? And I think initially you can attest to this. I think that like whenever like an autistic person is approached to do a book about autism, it's almost always a memoir. And I don't hate memoirs, autism memoirs, like in principle, but I felt like I grew up in church, so like that, as they say in church, that's just not my calling, so to speak. And I think that that background as a political reporter, around this time, you have to remember Donald Trump was starting to run for president.
Yeah,
and if you remember, like the second debate, they asked him about his past tweets about vaccines and autism. And that was really, and then what that said to me is, look, it's one way, Trump is Trump.
Sure.
But like, there are a lot of people, including a lot of liberals, who felt the same way. I grew up in Southern California, so that's my background. It's like, I know a lot of crunchy yoga moms who don't want to put toxins in their kids' bodies,
Yeah.
And then the political reporter in me thinks, well, if Donald Trump believes that, and there's a lot of people who are going to vote for Donald Trump, if the conversations we're having about autism seem to begin and end with vaccines, whenever we talk about autism in a political sense.
Yeah.
And that felt really divorced from what autistic people themselves
as a life, lived experience.
And then I was just like, well, if we have bad information and we keep on having these same discussions about autism, that must mean we don't have good policy about autism. So like, again, the next step in a journalist's brain is like, well, what is it like to be autistic in America? And that's really what kind of was the catalyst for this.
Yeah. And it's super useful. Actually, by the way, you're going to really enjoy Davey's skit later, I think, in a lot of ways. Okay. But I agree with you. I mean, and I have to give kudos to all of you. So Peculiars, I have to give kudos to Eric here, because to be honest, I was a late diagnosed person myself. I was in my 40s before. And then when I found out, I was just like, I just won't tell anyone. And so then I was talking to Eric I interviewed Eric for a different podcast, the one that Davey edited for us for the Medical Humanities Journal. And Eric's like, well, like us being autistic. And I was like, oh, I didn't tell you though. How did you? He's like, oh, honey, we have autism DAR. Like radar. And so then I realized, oh gosh, why am I wasn't really even sure why I was hiding it. So that's why, as a host of the Peculiar Book Club, I was just like, hi, neurodiverse, gender fluid, y'all get your weird out, let your fleek flag fly, because I meant freak, but you know what I mean.
Freak, whatever.
On fleek, I guess. But anyway, come on and join us, and we'll be part of this big, weird, wonderful community. And so it's not surprising that actually kind of a lot of our members either are autistic themselves, know people who are autistic, or are neurodiverse in other ways, ADHD, etc. And so it's just perfect to have you on the show, and I want to thank you. I also have to jump into our first question here. This is Leanne's. It's also Jennifer's question. So she asks, the goals of parents are different from the goals of advocates. Is this counterproductive? And then Jennifer says, I'm very interested in this question too. I found that really surprising because I feel like as a parent of a neurodiverse kid, my job is to help her gain independence and happiness. So, how are these things not always working together?
Yeah. So I think I should preface by saying #, not all parents. Cause I think that whenever you talk about the differences between parents and advocates, there's always like, well, I'm not like that kind of parent. So let's just preface that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents are conditioned by society and by the medical model of disability and autism to think that the platonic ideal, the thing to aspire to for autistic people, is to make them act or behave more neurotypically.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that Jennifer and Leanne's point, the goal for a lot of autistic people is similar to the goal that a lot of disability rights advocates before them came. And we can go into why autism is a little late to the game. Autistic advocates are a little late to the game in a little bit. Their kind of goal is we should help autistic people, like you said, gain independence and also happiness.
Yeah.
Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all that, and I think to the point about independence that's interesting you mentioned independence, because I think, and this is a tangent, but I think this
is going to happen to both of us.
This is going to happen. Just preface. I think that because of the history of institutionalization for such a long time, I think that independence was defined as not being in an institutional setting or being stuck at home or whatever. Whereas I think that, in my opinion, and this is just one man's opinion, I think that independence, in my opinion, is the ability to create your own choices.
Yeah, that's nice.
So living with family does not necessarily mean someone isn't independent, as long as they are able to come and go whenever they please. As long as they're able to pick their own job, control their own money, or if they have somebody who's like a representative payee, at least make financial decisions for themselves. That's where like supported decision making comes in, and we can go into that later. That's another policy thing. As long as they're able to make their own decisions and have guidance and assistance around them when making decisions, but nobody's making decisions for them.
Right.
I think that's independence. That's, I think, a better model of independence.
Yeah.
Is recognizing that interdependence is independence sometimes.
I think so it's interesting because I want to get to, this is a point that I'm actually going to hop on to, where she says, how do I reconcile the grief I feel for those lost years thinking I was a basket case? As an autistic woman who couldn't even mask properly, I really grieve my misunderstood past. I'm bringing that up here because one of the things I really identified with is this concept that my parents were really well-meaning. They loved me. They cared for me. They wanted me to be successful. But the refrain I heard all through growing up was, don't be weird, or at least don't be weird in public, right? So
or don't talk about it.
Or don't talk about it. And because I happen to have a strength for masking, it's a strength of mine, I can do it pretty well. I meant that I constantly was living under that mask and living out my life so that I was constantly performing. So it was always like, how can I perform for my parents or for my school or for my friends, or, and there was this real sense that if you don't match that normality, you have failed. And so my parents were just trying to help me be well-adjusted in a world that isn't really made for us, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
That's this, there was a disconnect between what was okay to be like diverse and kind of strange.
Yeah.
And, it weird in all the ways that I now think of as good, and what meant functional. And I think I have always had a real problem with terms like high functioning. Because what does that even mean?
Yeah. So let's address all of this, because this is important, and I really want to get to this. This is really important. How do you reconcile the grief you feel for all the stuff you're seeking your basket case? I think the way that you do it is you don't blame yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing, is you recognize that you were trying to fulfill, you were playing a role that was prescribed to you, but that you did not think that anything else was possible. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, is that because we've for so long focused on curing, and that's really only changed in really like the last 6 or 7 years. Autism Speaks only got rid of the cure part of its language in 2016, which is interesting because Bob Wright is really good friends with Trump, while Trump was spreading a lot of malarkey about autism. But the point being is that you have to recognize that was always an option for you, but it wasn't something that was offered.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the things, is that you can give yourself that room to breathe and grieve. And if you're going to get angry or grieve, get angry at the world around you, because you don't have to beat yourself up. Recognize that we live in a world that doesn't understand us. What's funny is that when I was reading older articles about autism from like the 60s and 70s, like I would hear the terms autism and childhood schizophrenia. I'd read them like come on almost interchangeably, because that was autism didn't get a separate diagnosis from schizophrenia until 1980. So like you have to think about it. So like if you are autistic and you were born before 1980, you were automatically seen. That was the label. And of course, just because the DSM has it, things can't change and catch up. People probably still associated it with schizophrenia.
I'm going to pop up Kathleen Richardson's point here, because she was talking about it's such a big deal with the categories and titles. And it's, how do you classify and what do you classify? I ended up in a Twitter discussion. Never.
Yes.
You saw that, right? Where somebody
I did.
See the point of diagnosing them, and I was like, well, in a perfect world that wasn't like antagonistic to people who had autism, you wouldn't.
Yeah. So this goes to the argument, to the final point I was making, is that I think that you owe it to your autistic loved ones to let them know as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And you owe it to them to let them know that A, they're not a flawed version or they're not a failed version of normal, but as soon as they can understand it, let them know. And then B, say that this is the way you are. We're working to change the world around us to make it better for you. But we want you to know that, life is going to be very different for you. But there are things that if you're a neurotypical parent, which a lot of parents who think that they're neurotypical actually aren't neurotypical, but there's undiagnosed autistic, but like that, just like how I have certain things that aren't that are challenges, but I also have proficiencies. You have those too. So that was real. So I think that's really important. And I should also say late self-diagnosis is also valid. Also A. So I should say that.
Yeah.
But overall, as far as the thing is, so I think that, some people think that, oh, well, labels hurt autistic people. Yes and no. So like, I should say that like when I was I got diagnosed in the 1990s. I'm 30. I'm 31. And that label, there was still a lot of misunderstanding around the label of autism in the 90s. And that was also, I got diagnosed a few years before Andrew Wakefield pulled out his bullshit study, and thank God that we didn't have the internet. Like the internet wasn't a big thing when my parents were raising us, because then it would have been that avalanche of bullshit. And I can't, in a weird way, I don't envy parents a lot now, because you're inundated with bullshit. I can't begrudge any parent who is just overwhelmed right now, because there's so much bad information.
Here it is.
So much. Yes. My half brother is born and was eventually diagnosed. She blamed the vaccines, though pretty sure all of her kids are on the spectrum or something. Yeah. Literally there was one person who I met who, Brandy, Aaron, they're non-binary. Their parents blamed the vaccines for their kid being their child being autistic, and it wasted a lot of.
And also then blamed autism for making her non-binary, which is the other crazy thing. She's coming from every possible angle.
Yeah, exactly. And now you see, you see this as somebody who's kind of goes between the two sides of the pond. A lot of TERFs are weaponizing autism now.
Yeah. Of course, right? Because it can be. I have a couple. I'm running behind on my questions here. I know I've missed a few. Guys, go ahead and re-add them if I've missed yours.
Yeah, re-add them.
Jennifer Pierce says, speaking of grief, I have a lot of guilt that despite my best efforts and a past as an RN, I had no idea my kid could be autistic until she was 20. And I wonder if I could have saved her some pain. And I know my own mom, when I finally came out as autistic, had similar things to say.
Yeah. So the thing that I should also say is that this is one of the reasons why I think neurodiversity is such a good concept about accepting people, is that it absolves parents of blame, and it absolves doctors of blame, and it absolves a lot, because then what it does, and again, I'm bringing back just because my mom growing up, I think a lot of people wanted me to be a minister. It reminds me of that verse of the Bible where it says where Jesus sees a blind man and somebody says, who sinned to cause this guy to be blind? He says, nobody sinned. And in the same way, I think that what what's so good about neurodiversity is that it says, okay, it's nobody's fault that somebody's autistic.
Yeah.
And we have been spending so much time. I don't think it's about you sparing her pain. It's that you were just going with what you knew at the time.
Right.
And hopefully now, hopefully now we can do better. It's kind of there's a lot of arguments. You see this a lot on Twitter right now. A lot of talk about the student debt cancellation, and everybody's like, well, I didn't have student debt, so, or I paid all my student debt, so I could do. But it's no, you should I don't want younger autistic people to suffer, just because I had trouble understanding this. If anything, I want it so you don't have self-flagellation isn't the way to go.
No, it is.
And the way that you say it now is that and the fact that you were an RN, I think also indicates that because medicine has a lot of bad ideas about autism,
it does.
Maybe that there was that label around it, so it just wasn't discussed as something that you could live a good life and be autistic.
Well, and the other thing that I would say is my what I found out from my mother, is that it's not that she didn't suspect. People had even suggested I be tested, but oh no, then this label, of, because she'd seen Rain Man and she was oh gosh, she's going to be institutionalized. It's not going to be able to live it. So I was afraid of someone taking me away. And in a way it was a protection that she I'm not granted.
Those kind of deals that parents made with themselves are endlessly fascinating. Because some parents did it so that their kids wouldn't be institutionalized, and that's one of those things of okay, on one end they didn't understand themselves, but on the other hand they weren't institutionalized. Which one was? That's an impossible choice. Especially during pre-1990s or
Yeah, I mean, I was born in 1977, and so when I was growing up, my mom was just shh, we don't.
Yeah.
About that kind of thing. Kristen Meston was asking about your own experience with your mom. She says you mentioned your mom helped advocate for you at community college, and she's asking like, how did you learn to self-advocate when someone's advocate? How do you make that transition?
So like it's funny because I was actually kind of the opposite. That like I didn't want my mom to advocate for. Like I just didn't want any advocacy at all. I just wanted to live my life normally. So like I can't say that, but like I think the thing that you say is that like, I'm happy to be there for you and I'm happy to speak up for you. And like, I do think that because of ableism, parents do have an important role because people tend to take parents more seriously, unfortunately. But so like, I do think parents have a role. Again, I'm not anti-parent. But I think that the thing you say is that I'm happy to be there for you and be of service to you and help you as long as you need me. But what I want you to know is that my choices, my advocating for you isn't what I want for you. I want to know what you want.
For you.
I think moving what you want for you. And I think that's the real important way to go about it.
Yeah. And I just re-advocating here that it's for so long there was this concept that you could be cured. And so of course when I like got really good at masking, my parents were like, hey, look what we fixed her, right? She's fixed. She's done. When in fact, I'm just lucky. Like I have many, I know people who are nonverbal. I happen to be hyperlexic, which is the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And Judy was actually saying, she wants to know, like you have people who don't speak, who are nonverbal. And then you turn around and have others who write a book. I know that's really hard to understand because, of course, it's the same condition, but it can have really opposite. We can have really opposite effects.
Yeah. So answer the question of what happened to Asperger's. Hans Asperger was a Nazi. That's the short answer.
Yeah, that is the short answer. It's true. I'm reading that right now.
It came out that he was a Nazi. Because you're doing that whole thing about that book about Nazism and Nazi Germany. And like some people say, oh, he wasn't a member of the Nazi party, but like I'm sorry, if you're sending kids to their death in a clinic, like you're a fucking Nazi.
You're a Nazi.
I don't care what your card says, or if you have a card, you're a Nazi. So there's that. I think that for a long time, and Brandy, this was part of the. I felt bad that I didn't back you up as much into doing that Twitter conversation, but like I was working at the time, but like I wanted to. But like to the point, I think that for a long time, people thought about the autism spectrum as kind of like a scale or like like a continuum. When really it's more like a color wheel.
Right. That's why I put my tweet, because I was like, think of the color spectrum, right? It's not from like not color to lots of color. It's different colors. And
because
so
like some people like this is the point that I always make is that one person who I interviewed was this young man by the name of Hari Srinivasan, who is not speaking, but recently graduated from UCLA and is now going to grad school at Vanderbilt University. Mm-hmm. So like, is he not low functioning or is he high functioning? This is why I'm not a fan of the term high functioning or low functioning, because that doesn't, just like non-binary, you can't fit into either of those. In the same way, like, that doesn't fit. Whereas, like, one of the interesting things was there was one woman who I profiled. Her name was Aria, and I just agreed to just use that pseudonym.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she's married, she's speaking, she has children,
right?
But she couldn't graduate college, and she's had trouble finding work. So who's high functioning or low functioning there?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
On one end, you have somebody who can not speak, but clearly has a capacity for intellect.
Yeah.
And then on the other end, you have somebody who I guess you could say could mask or pass as neurotypical, but has trouble maintaining employment and going to school.
Mm-hmm.
Are either of them less autistic than the other or more autistic than the other?
Or less?
You can't say that. You can't say that. No. Like their autism manifests in ways.
Was about someone saying if they don't look like they're being autistic, then that means they're not autistic. She was basically thinking that a lot of girls were being misdiagnosed as autistic, which is exactly the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Statistics in the book. But she was basically saying, but she was diagnosed autistic and now she's stopped misbehaving. And I was like, well, misbehavior and autism are not the same thing.
No, in fact, oftentimes misbehavior is a result of misdiagnosis because it's a desire to want to be understood.
Right.
A lot of non-speaking autistic people engage in self-injurious behavior or biting or other things because they're not being understood. And I think that the problem is that a lot of times we associate that as a symptom of the autism, and therefore we pathologize it rather than see. And look,
I would say it's active.
We don't see it as a form of frustration. And like, look, people don't like, nobody likes when people throw a plate or injure themselves. That's bad. But what is that? But instead of focusing on what's the cause of that, we focus on the result of that, on the manifesting behavior.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not so keen on that, on focusing on that.
Joanne Rickard Hall is a friend of mine, and I think her daughter's online too right now. So hi, guys. This is their first show. She was saying regarding the lost years, along with the realization that my new truth and diagnosis, it was almost more anger than grief, anger at how I was treated in my youth. And then grief for the loss kind of comes later. And I actually think that's really true because for me, it was more like I said this online yesterday and people really liked it, but I said, the problem is that it looks like I'm just making decisions when I'm actually wrestling bears to be here.
Exactly.
I was a biter.
People don't recognize how much more work it takes for us to do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I look so well. Okay, I don't look that normal, obviously, but I'm functioning out there in the world, and people just don't realize that. Like as a child, I couldn't be put with other children because I would bite them. I'd figured out how to walk and talk by the time I was 8 months old. I escaped from daycare so many times they wouldn't have me back. I was a problematic little kid to deal with, and no one knows that. History. They just look at that and go, "Oh, she's very well adjusted,"
Yeah, but then also like one of the other things is that like whenever anybody says like, "Oh, I never would have guessed you're autistic," my response is like, "Thank you. It took a lot of work to like put on this mask. Like I deserve an Academy Award for this."
I have tons of more questions. Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing tonight. You're on fire. But first, we have a couple of things I want to show us. First, I did a little bit of a skit for starters, but I feel like we need to save mine because Davey's is so appropriate for this evening. So I think we should start with Davey's skit, and then I think we should have our little musical interlude. Then we'll be back for more questions, an additional skit, our quiz, so much more. We could probably talk all night.
All right. That concludes my presentation on vaccines. Let's open it up for some Q&A.
Yes, hi. I've heard that vaccines can cause kids to grow tails.
Wait, is this from a study somewhere?
Well, I know someone whose kid has a tail.
And did they get vaccinated?
I don't know.
No, vaccines don't cause kids to grow tails. All right, let's move on to another question.
Hi, yes, I've heard that vaccines can cause chronic dry mouth.
Are you sure your dry mouth isn't because you're shoving your face with crackers?
Probably.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, can vaccines cause your arm to fall off?
What? No. What do you do for a living?
I'm a lumberjack.
Did your arm fall off perhaps in a lumberjacking accident?
Yeah, but I also got vaccinated.
Okay, let's take one more question.
What do you say to the reports that claim that vaccines make people cry uncontrollably?
Are you cutting an onion during my presentation?
Yes, I am.
All right, I think we're good on Q&A. I'm not sure you actually learned anything today.
Maggie, are you cutting an onion?
For Maggie, her first sketch she's in.
It was so funny. When I saw the
great.
Oh my god, so good, so good.
Yeah, we wanted to put something together that really pointed out the absurdist view of the different things vaccines
Yes.
By the way, we need to figure out a way to keep Brandy's camera live while the videos are playing because she was falling out of her chair.
I lose it every single time. This is so freaking funny.
That is great. Davey, bravo.
If you haven't figured it out tonight, Peculiars, I think this episode's going long. There's so many great questions, so hang in there. We see your questions.
Yes.
It's so good. Oh my god. And I'm trying to keep track of all y'all, but seriously, you guys, everybody, and there's Maggie for you, silvery blue queen. You were amazing. The onion thing. I'm sorry, the onion where she's like
the onion part.
Duh. Of course I'm cutting up an onion.
No, the lumberjack part. The lumberjack part.
That was pretty good too, I have to say. That was pretty awesome. All right, so I'm squeezing back up here to try and catch some of the comments oh my god, there's so many comments.
Yeah.
Crap.
You want me to help? I've kind of been following along some of the questions.
Help.
Okay.
So many things. I lost track. I was all the way up. I see there was some stuff by Cat up there. I'm just going to throw a few up here.
A lot of parents have diagnosed ADHD when their children are diagnosed. Didn't realize with so many like I've half joked that like when like it should be like buy one get one free, that like when a kid's diagnosed with autism that there should be at least a test for parents, like because it comes from somewhere. Or like my favorite one. Sorry, like we're just having fun right now. But like my favorite one is when like people are like, I don't know where my kid being autistic is from. I was like, and then like they mentioned and like I mentioned a few of the behaviors. It's like, well, their uncle was that way and he wasn't autistic. And I'm just like, Uncle Dick was autistic. He just didn't have the label.
The label, right, exactly. And actually, this point about self-diagnosis is fascinating too, because lots and lots of people realize it late. I actually saw a point somewhere here about, I think it's from Amberly, about so I asked my therapist about getting an autism diagnosis. He said there's no point in getting a diagnosis as an adult, and I think there's a point. Now, granted, it's harder to diagose adults, but
a lot of times they aren't covered under insurance. So it costs an arm and a leg, an arm that would fall off if you got a vaccine. Just a little hat tip to you there, Davey. I think that. So I think that there's merit if you want it. I think there is if you want it.
There definitely are. Yeah.
But I think that if you don't want a diagnosis, that's cool. Like if you don't feel like you need a formal piece of paper, but you recognize it as yourself, like that's cool too. It really just is a matter of like, I think that like, what do you see as the necessity of it? Like if you feel like it's just so you know. So some people might be, I just need to know. Other times, you might need it for accommodations at work because sometimes you just need the piece of paper.
Right.
But if you if you already know and you don't necessarily need the accommodations, you just want that understanding and that self-identifier, that's cool too. But like it really just is about whatever situation you're in.
Yeah, actually, Maggie asked a question, says, how do you deal with asking for accommodations, say, for instance, when someone thinks what you're asking for is a performance? And this is a question that's important to me as well, because I was so good at masking for so long, when I ended up writing for the Scientific American about it. I was like, all right, this is going full Scientific American public announcement of my autism, because even my own family members would say things like, well, why are you acting this way now? Like they thought the autism was the performance because they didn't recognize that in fact asking was the performance, and they don't necessarily want to accommodate you. Like, why should I behave any different with you now? I've known you for however many years.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me like one of my friends, like when I went to college, he was closeted for a long time, and we went to college in the South, where there's a lot of, where there's like a hyper masculine culture. Yeah. And then one of the things that I noticed is that like a few years after he came out, like we would hang out, and I realized that he acted very differently. And the thing that I thought about is like, oh, that's who he is, the guy, not to say that the guy who he wasn't, I'm sure that there are parts, we all mask and put parts of ourselves into whatever persona, but like that person who I saw when I was in college, a lot of that was an act.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I think you and I have talked about this, once you recognize and you've actually texted me about this, like, so like, spoiler, everybody, Brandy and I are actually friends. So like, like, I think you texted me like a few months ago that you said like you feel less of a need to mask after you've already recognized your autism. Like, you just give less of a fuck. And and what's funny is that like I think that like, especially after having written about autism, like I feel less of a need to like mask about it, because it's like, okay, now when you Google me, that's the first thing you're gonna see. So it's out there. Like, it's not gonna, like, there's no way around this thing, So you might as well just embrace it. So to the point, like, about masking poor performance, I think a lot of that goes to the point that I make a lot of times, which is that a lot of times accommodations, that's the real problem with accommodations, and that's really kind of the problem. If I can get to the political part of this, is why my book is very inherently a political book.
Yeah.
The Americans with Disabilities Act is inherently a passive law. And what do I mean by that? There's no ADA enforcement agency. I don't know. Like, I don't know how that would even work. Like,
there's no stop discriminating people police. They're just
there isn't. No, it's not even like, and that was intentional to get Republicans to support it, because it was a bipartisan bill. Because so what that does is that it puts the onus on the person with the disability to ask for the accommodation.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And for something as diverse as autism, that could mean a lot of things. So there's no one uniform thing. So I think the thing that's really difficult is that a lot of times, like, because a lot of people have asked me, like, how do I disclose? Should I disclose to my employer? And I'm always kind of like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm always kind of like, depends.
Yeah.
The thing that I do is I kind of like give people a vibe check test, which is like, if you can get into the building with a wheelchair, that's maybe a good barometer. If there are a lot of women in leadership in that employer,
if it's not got access in some areas, it's not going to have access in other areas.
Or there's not even going to be that receptiveness to listen. Because autism is such a different thing that manifests in so many unique ways. Go ahead.
And I would also say, if you're putting the onus on on the person asking for the accommodations, Joanna Rickard Hall makes another point here. She says, I'm in my 60s and I always got that you never finished anything. Why did like pull yourself up by the bootstraps? If you're asking the autistic or the disabled person to ask for the accommodations, then you're making them a problem. Like, they're
that's the weird thing about the ADA, and to a lesser, the ADA. IDEA is a little different because it deals mostly with kids up to 21. And for those who don't know, and the IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So there is, and then there's a stigma in my family, person of color, that we don't have mental health problems to get mental health help. Yeah, so that's another element too, is that it winds up making, even though the ADA was meant to say that people with disabilities are not a problem, they are parts of society. They like, I know I'm speaking like about American law, so apologies to all UK people. I'm sure that there's similar difficulties or unique difficulties in social problems in other countries. The thing of it is that it still makes them the problem by virtue of having to ask for the accommodations. It's interesting, because I wrote a piece for the Washington Post a year ago about a year and a half ago about because like during COVID-19, a lot of restaurants, to stay afloat, did sidewalk dining, and that's really difficult for a lot of people with wheelchairs because of the ADA, they had to do that. The problem with it is that for people with wheelchairs who want to like be able to get around, they have to file a complaint.
Yeah.
The DL and things like that. And that inherently turns them into a problem when they don't, because they live in that community. So they don't want to cause a nuisance. Nobody wants to be the person who files a complaint against everybody's favorite restaurant.
I know. This is what is interesting to me about, so I'm a journal editor, and then we are going to go to music. Sorry, I forgot.
Yes.
But I'm a journal editor, and one of the things we try to do is provide accommodations and accessibility, right?
Yes.
And what's interesting is I work for the BMJ, and they'll say things like, okay, so you want to help this group of people, so we'll separate that. And I'm like, no. The minute you start, they go over here in the special category, right? That's the problem, is that we have where we have accessibility in this country, we don't often have integration. And that's a huge problem. That's both political and just experiential. But first, Deep in the High by Charming Disaster.
Yes.
Hello, we're Charming Disaster. Friends, family, peculiars, and esteemed guests, welcome to the Big Top. Our hero, the trapeze artist, is speaking off stage to the one-legged tattooed lady, his lover. Unbeknownst to them, his wife, the snake charmer, looks on. Give me a kiss before I'm to go, a lingering kiss to keep me warm. Pack your things and don't tell a soul, my clumsy dancer, my good luck charm. I'll think of you when I'm high in the air, the things we'll do when we get out of here. The net stretched to catch me's the trap that I'm in. My future's in pictures all over your skin. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall, I swing on a wire high over it all. Look down at the sky and up at the floor. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall.
We were so young and innocent back then when we first met. You were so tender and sweet. I cherish the memory words that you said to me. You swept me right off my feet. Now I know a couple things. There's a life in the ring, then there's a life that you live. You've grown cold and distant, it's making me desperate. Something is going to give.
Beware the snake charmer with the lazy green eye. She's a hot-headed harpy with a murderous mind. I've been in her coils for 10 years of my life. A pox on these rings which do nothing but bind. It must have been madness when we were wed. The liquor of passion gone straight to our heads. Ever since then there's been pain and regret, bile in our hearts and snakes in our bed. Snakes in our bed. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall. We had our time, darling, that time is no more. Look down at the sky and up at the floor. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall.
You're a bastard. Seedy, unscrupulous, candy-ass dilettante, lazy Lothario rat turd. You're a bastard, self-centered, ignorant, cheap, inconsiderate, two-timing, impotent, layabout, flatulent, mama's boy, drunken disaster. You're a son of a whore. Deep in the high that
that does nothing but fall.
I loved you too much if I loved you at all.
Look down at the sky and up at the floor. Deep in the eye that does nothing but fall.
I know that you lied to me. I've got a memory long as an elephant's trunk. I'll make you remember me. Now I'm your enemy. You will regret what you've done. Think of all of the years we spent under this circus tent. Now I am wondering why. You'll know what I meant. It'll look like an accident when I teach you how to fly. He flies through the air with the greatest of ease, the daring young man on the flying trapeze.
His movements are graceful, the girls he does please. The daring young man on the flying trapeze. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall, I swing on a wire high over it all.
I loved you too much if I loved you at all.
We had our time, darling, that time is no more. Look down at the sky and up at the floor. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall. Deep in the high that does nothing but fall.
That is amazing.
So Charm Disaster is kind of our house band, and we do have other bands that come on the show too. But I love them very much. I was trying to catch up on some of the comments while we were listening to the song, and I'm going to just kind of consolidate a few of them because I think some are questions and some are comments. Several people talking about the difficulty, for instance, of let's say getting a PhD. I'd have a PhD.
Yeah.
And how brutal that can be for anybody, but then also you take into consideration ADHD or.
By the way, you should really have Devin Price on the show next season.
Okay, which ones?
Like,
send me an email about that because
his book is Unmasking Autism. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We talked about that.
No, never mind. Sorry, but yeah.
But it's very, very difficult work, because it's already a very, very hard situation.
Yeah.
So several people are talking about how hard it can be and how hard it can be when you can't get the people around you to see that your issues are actually autism, and not because you're lazy and not because you're not paying attention, not because, all of these different things. And it's funny because if someone comes in and says, I have diabetes or I'm fighting cancer,
take it as face value.
Right. Whereas if you say I have autism, they're kind of like, well, do you have it a lot or just a little?
Again, functioning labels, all that, which is why functional labels are bullshit. But, it's interesting because this is something that M. Remy, year ago, and I have discussed. It's like it's almost as if, and they put it better than I can. And M. Remy, year ago, they're a professor at the University of Michigan, also a PhD, an academic, also somebody that you should have on the show. Sorry, I'm just blowing up your suggestions right here, but they said it's almost by virtue of being at the university, there's this idea that you can't be disabled, and those two things almost cancel themselves out.
Like PhD, therefore
you can have a PhD, ergo you must not be autistic. And this is another reason why I'm not a fan of functioning labels, because they create stigma. Because what they do is that they flatten the experience. Yeah. Because what it does, function labels are a product of Hans Asperger and therefore eugenics and Nazis. Right. So let's talk about what we're talking about. But for readers
who don't know, just briefly, partly what the high functioning but low functioning labels were these are groups of people who were deciding who got to live, and who died, and who was not considered, adequate enough for society, and so that's why the functioning labels are really problematic. Just in case you don't know the history,
life unworthy of life, as they talked about in Nazi Germany. And it was literally like a label in the T4 program. So there's that, and then B, I think what it does is that when you say that someone is high functioning, it says, well, we don't need to spend that much on them. And then what it does is it also says that, because let's be real, a lot of universities and higher learning institutions, they're strapped for cash specifically because we've never really funded disability education. So they're just feeling up, if somebody's high functioning, we shouldn't spend that much money that would otherwise go to a quote more deserving, more lower functioning or more disabled person. So what it does,
our financial system it works much the same way, right? It's like, we don't help lower middle class people. You either get help if you're upper or you're already destitute, right? We tend not to pick people up in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So like that is very much the case, which is why, so like I went to school on Pell Grants. I had some loans, I paid them off last year, but I don't have as many loans as other people do. But like a lot of my friends, because like I guess you could say like we were lower middle class after my parents divorced. We weren't poor, but we weren't upper middle class.
I've eaten a raccoon. So
yeah. Well, like you and I have talked about the fact that you're from like working class, America. But like, so like, but the point being is that like in the same way, we don't have we don't help a lot of those people who are quote unquote in the middle, or we think that just because they're in the quote unquote middle that they don't need as many accommodations.
Or they think like, because you happen to have like a lot of spoons one day, Rebecca talks about like weeping in the grocery store because you've done enough. One day they meet you and one day they meet you and you have all the spoons and you're doing really well. And then the next time they don't. I saw Philip's comment earlier about my wife wonders why I have these new behaviors after 30 years of marriage when I was diagnosed 5 months ago. The lovely Lady Paws, who is my wonderful partner, also is still learning new things about what I can and what I struggle with and what I tend to have, weird mental breakdowns about. I just saw several of you mention phone calls, and I've had to get over that one because I have to. That one's hard. It totally is. And then my other favorite comment, and then actually we can play this little clip that I did. My other favorite comment is all about how I've been told repeatedly, well, since you're autistic, you don't have emotions, so we don't have to be careful with yours. Right. We don't have to be careful with yours. So I wonder if Davey, we might not play the whole long clip, Davey. We might stop it after that first section, but if you wanted to play the funny.
Okay, you just wave your arms like this when you want me to stop.
That's when it's time. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Here is Brandy's sketch.
Here's me.
Hey, so you're autistic, right? Yeah, I am. So you're like really good at art. You do art everywhere. I'm autistic. Oh, so like Rain Man? No, not like Rain Man. I bet you're a savant. Are you a savant? Can you like? I don't know, can you do like math in your head? It's not like, oh, so you can't do the special stuff. Because I know some autistic people just have, like they don't have friends. But that doesn't mean we don't have friends. It doesn't mean we can't have jobs. Some of us have highly relational jobs, like even work in medicine. Oh, so you are a savant. What? No, okay. So autism, it does mean that or I might do stimming or things that make it seemed like I'm not normal, like you're not normal, right? Like, it must be nice though not having emotions, because sometimes I'm like super emotional and I would love it if I was more like you and I just didn't have any. What's really funny though is that you don't look autistic, like I would never have known. I look autistic, there's a lot to unpack because we don't look a certain way necessarily. Oh, but you don't look people in the eye either. I remember that one, you kind of look off at the side. There are things that are maybe harder for me than for other people, but I've learned to overmaster that partly because masking is something we learn how to do to make neurotypical people feel comfortable. And it's not just autistic people, it's people with ADHD and you have ADHD too? I thought you only got one or the other. Oh my God, how do you function? Hello class, welcome to
it went on with with me educating us, but I feel like all the education's happening here, so we don't need the whole thing. It's just I'm doing
in session, motherfuckers.
What I love is everybody, like, everyone was sort of like, everyone who watches this, when it gets to the emotion part, they're like, that, right?
That one right there.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Because it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, it is, actually. Because a lot of times, you're putting on certain behaviors to help other people feel comfortable,
yes.
which is me worrying about how other people approach me and think about it and etc. But I made that skit partly as a joke, but partly because it really is true, and it hurts. I have all kinds of emotions all the time. They just don't look like what people think. By the way, Mike says, Eric, best guest ever. Is it the language? Is that what you're reflecting on there, Mike? Yeah. Anyway, I've lost track of questions again, Davey. I don't even know what. Maybe it's time to go to a quiz. I think
it's time to quiz our guest. Yeah, we'll see if Eric's really the best guest ever. How he does on our quiz right here.
Now you're gonna quiz and I'm gonna hide. I'm gonna disappear now.
So Eric, now I'm pretty sure that a lot of this book, you talk about one of your loves, which is music.
Yes.
So I thought I would pull from that because the music world does have some people that are openly talk about autism and being autistic and when they were diagnosed. Yes. So our quiz is about that, but our quiz is not about their autism. Our quiz is about their music. So this quiz is called I Wanna Rock. So I accidentally pulled someone from the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. So we're starting with the 90s. Travis Meeks, the lead singer and guitarist for the rock band Days of the New, which was a rock band in the 90s, loves playing this brand of acoustic guitar. And I looked up; these are some of the top acoustic guitar brands. Yes. I don't know if you know your guitars, your acoustic guitars. Is it a Taylor? Is it a Martin? Or is it a Gibson? What do you think?
I'm going to go with a Martin.
He's going with the Martin. Peculiars, what do you think? I will tell you that this guy loves acoustic guitars. Acoustic guitars are more musical, he said. They're not all covered up by different sounds and distortion. Of course, we put distortion on our guitars, but I like to go make campfires and sit out by the water and play his acoustic guitar. So we got a bunch of different guesses here. The answer is actually A. The answer is a Taylor guitar, which
I was torn between the two.
According to articles, is the top acoustic guitar brand.
Yeah, so like I've played because like I recently acquired an acoustic and I got a Gibson, but I was torn between that and a Martin. So like I like Taylors. I really like Taylors. I don't have a problem with it, but like there's something like if you're thinking about like if you close your eyes and you strum one chord and you think about a guitar, I think it should be a Martin D18. That's just me.
I can play the radio. That's about it.
Maybe Eric, maybe a future musical guest on the show as well. Maybe one of these days. All right, so that was the 90s. Travis, I believe, was diagnosed as a child with Asperger's.
Yes.
We'll go to our 80s question here. Now, David Byrne, who is the lead singer and guitarist for the band Talking Heads, is self-diagnosed, but he's talked about it openly a lot in recent interviews. Now, he is one award away from an EGOT, which is the epitome of award season, right? The Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. What is he missing, though? Is he missing the Tony? Is he missing the Oscar? Or is he missing the Emmy?
I'm going to say he's missing the Oscar.
He's guessing missing Oscar. What do you think out there, Peculiars? Do you think? Which award? I mean, he's got 3 of the 4 for an EGOT. That's pretty impressive there. And I'll tell you what it is. Everybody's guessing B. He hasn't been in a movie. That's what they're guessing. The answer is actually Emmy. Emmy. Remember, you can win an Oscar for soundtrack for songs and movies, right?
I figured he probably got an Emmy for a music video he did or something.
We got to get him on TV somehow so he can complete this EGOT. He won the Oscar for The Last Emperor. Best original score for The Last Emperor. Won Grammy, won a Tony recently in 2021. He won a Tony for American Utopia on Broadway.
Jennifer's got to go.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi,
yeah,
Jennifer.
This is a long episode, Peculiars. We appreciate you hanging in there. All right, we're going back to this band's really the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. We're talking about Jefferson Airplane and Jefferson Starship and Starship. One of their lead singers and guitarist, Marty Balin, wasn't with the band when it finally achieved a #1 song, which was when the band was known as Starship, with We Built This City on Rock and Roll. They actually had 3 #1 hits. We Built the City, Sarah, and Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. However, when Marty Balin, who is open again about being diagnosed with autism, talks about it a lot, when he was with Jefferson Airplane / Starship, what was the highest charting song with him? Was it, and now she's covering up my answers. Was it White Rabbit? Was it Count on Me? Or was it Miracles? What do you think was the highest charting Airplane / Starship song?
I mean, I fucking love White Rabbit, and when I was in a band, we used to do a cover of White Rabbit, so I'm just going to go with A.
He's going A, White Rabbit. Peculiars, a lot of A's there. A lot of 60s rock fans. All right, the answer is Miracles.
That was the one I was thinking. The second one, like,
Miracles made it to #3. This is the U.S. I should have specified for our UK listeners. This was the U.S. chart.
On this. Yeah.
Miracles made it to #3. Count on Me made it to #8 on the charts, and White Rabbit made it to 8 as well.
Okay.
So yeah,
Good.
So there you go. Some rockers that have autism but can really rock.
Yes.
I love it. I always love our quizzes though, because our quiz 3 strikes I'm out, says Stephanie. Don't.
That was a tough quiz this week. I mean,
that was tough.
That was tough, but I wanted to make it about their music because
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And everyone is agreeing that it's amazing. I have so many autism stories. I have so many stories I want to tell, but it is like 8:07 already, and I know we're running close to time. I do have some announcements I have to share with all of you.
I want to say, because we didn't get to all their comments, but they have had a fantastic conversation in the chat.
Yes, it's been so good.
And we appreciate all the back and forth and the support you've shown each other in the chat and answering each other's questions. So congrats to you, Peculiars, for a great sideshow to the main show.
The Peculiars are, I have to say, this is what makes this club unique and special and amazing, which is it's made by those of you who come, that come all the time, that subscribe, that are part of our big family, part of our VIP newsletter for those of you who are subscribers. And in fact, I have a couple announcements about that. Davey, did you get those too? Yeah, it's true, Rebecca. You guys are the shit. That is absolutely true. Yeah. So one of the things that we have going on is I've started selling half-season subscriptions. We have some new people who have come along and asked if they could buy half seasons, which would entitle you to some of our extra shows, green room time, meeting with the authors, shaping the club, getting a free t-shirt. Do you have that slide up there anywhere?
I do not. Hang on. We'll find it.
It's on our Facebook, guys. It's on our Facebook. Absolute Units, says Amanda Johnson. We have to use that every single time, guys. We can't have a show where we don't use the words absolute unit. Yeah. But yes, I definitely want us to try and see if we can bring more people in, allow them to come in as subscribers. So the half season is available. It's $55, and they get a t-shirt, and they can come to the extra shows and stuff. Of course, our shows are generally free and by no donation outside of the extra shows, but you also get subscribed to the VIP newsletter and other things which you don't normally get a chance to do otherwise. And the other thing I want to mention is I have a friend who's got a cool art show coming up. And I just thought of you guys because it's her name is Arabella Proffer. If you don't know her, you can follow her on various social medias and on Instagram. She is an artist here locally in Cleveland. She did a book called The Restrooms of Cleveland, which was hilarious and awesome. There are so many weird bathrooms in this town. But the other thing that she does is art. And these are her pieces of art. She's doing an online show that is like a digital show where you can, just like we are an online club, you can actually go to like a digital sort of version of a museum and see some of her work. She also sells these as prints and other things. And I believe we have some HTTP kind of things we can put up for you guys to follow. So if you're interested at all, the show's in November. It's just cool, funky stuff. She does another group of paintings called Biomorphics, which have vaguely squid-like qualities. And so when I saw that she was doing a show in November, I wanted to make sure to get the word out. So her name, again, is Arabella Proffer. She's Frida Kahlo vibes, definitely. She's a good friend of mine. She also has a lot to do with medicine. She is a cancer patient. She's actually has terminal cancer at the moment, but she's done a lot of paintings related to amputation and medicine and things like that. So it's very cool. I hope you guys can check it out. Okay, did we get that? Great. The other thing I have to say is that we have 2 giveaway t-shirts today, and it just so happens that one of them is it actually just popped up in the chat here. We do these sort of by random drawing. So Chris Yetman is actually one of our t-shirt winners. So Chris, if you want to get back to me, you'll have to send me an email on my to my email address, and then I can get your information to send you a t-shirt. It's the t-shirt that has the Nautilus on the front. It says "Peculiar Book" with a bloody club, because, you know. And our other winner was Fiona Jane Brown. Fiona Jane Brown, if you are watching, I haven't seen you pop up in the chat yet, but I know you're here somewhere. You need to let us know, and I will get you a t-shirt as well. Amanda Johnson is asking about season 4. I have announcements, not quite ready to make them yet, but it's very exciting stuff. We are selling half season 3 subscriptions. Season 4 not yet, but it's soon. It's soon. Okay. Oh, it's you. It's History Quine. Goodness me. Awesome. So you need to send me an email too, and then you guys get t-shirts. So woot, everybody gets a t-shirt. I think that's all of my announcements. Oh my gosh, you guys, I really need to write these things down. I know. The anticipation is killing me too. You guys are not going to believe who I have coming onto the show in season 4. It's so exciting, but haha, you have to wait.
I'm still excited for some of the books we have coming up for season 3. I mean, the half season subscription, we have books on death, on sex, on ghosts, oh man.
Death,
so much.
Sex, ghosts, you know, I mean,
Some
there's
old favorites coming back. Yeah.
we do. And oh yeah, season 3 teas. Thank you for reminding me. I love it how you guys are reminding me of the announcements I'm supposed to be giving you. We also have season 3 t-shirts available, and you can purchase them. They're really cool. They have the murdery grumpy-puss on them, the octopus with the murdery stuff that you guys helped design because it was your ideas. Forgetting to write things down is such a mood, right? Yeah, it is. It's actually
it's autism culture.
I know. I'm like, I'll remember that. I have a photographic memory. So yes, please join more. Samantha, I hope you will come up. We have lots of sex coming up for some. I did not.
Sex ghosts. That's
sex and ghosts. Right. And Haley Campbell, she's the daughter of the illustrator for From Hell, written by Alan Moore, and is friends with Neil Gaiman, wrote a book about Neil Gaiman. She's going to be on next, actually.
Someone's drag racing.
That was a motorcycle. Like next to my apartment.
Woo,
just like motherfucker.
Excited dance fueled by cocktails and sugar and lots of things, says Kat, going on. Neil Gaiman is fab. He's great. We've asked him on the show, and he always very politely declines, but don't worry, I'm going to keep asking him because it would be fun to have him on. And anyway, I think that's everything. You guys, it was so wonderful to have you here. Stay weird, stay awesome, stay great, stay autistic, be you. Thank you, Eric, for joining us. And thank all of you for having a wonderful chat. It's been amazing to just keep track and watch you go. Thank you, mwah, for being part of a place where if you're weird, you're family.
You got the blue bottle blues when you wake up in the night. Don't make a big mistake, 'cause you can never make it right. When you reach out for the vial, feel the ridges in the glass. It's a